Okay, now that we get the idea of a geometric sequence, we're going to write the recursive formula for a sequence. So a recursive formula, just to remind you, for geometric is a sub n equals your common ratio times a sub n minus 1, which just stands for the previous term. And we add on to it with a sub 1 equal to whatever it's equal to. Okay, they already told us that the sequence is geometric, so we don't need to check that it is, but we do need to find the common ratio. And I guess I would say if they told us it's geometric, we already know that it will have a common ratio. So let's just take the second term, divide it by the first term, reduce that down, 12 and 8 divide by 4, we get 3 halves. And I know that the rest of the ratios, 18 divided by 12, 27 divided by 18, those will all reduce to 3 halves because this is geometric. Okay, so we have our common ratio of 3 halves. We also need the first term of the sequence. The first term is 8. We can just tell by looking at it. And now we can write our recursive rule or our recursive formula. So we say a sub n equals, I'm just following this up here now, plugging in the information, r, which is the common ratio, 3 halves times a sub n minus 1. So this a sub n minus 1 stays in your formula when you plug in your common ratio and your first term. And then we add on, you can write it next to it or maybe a little below it, with a sub 1 equal to 8. That is a recursive formula for this sequence. It tells people to start with the first term of 8, then take 3 halves times the previous term to get the next term. So we would take 3 halves times 8 to get 12. Then we would take 3 halves times 12 to get 18. Then 3 halves times 18 to get 27, and so on. Okay, so let's try just one more example of this. Again, we know it's geometric, so let's find our common ratio. Take the second term, divide it by the first term. And I suppose you could take any 2 terms you wanted. Maybe taking the 12 and the 48 would be a little bit easier to reduce. But this does reduce to 1/4, so our common ratio is 1/4. Our first term is that 3072, and now we can write our formula. So our recursive formula will be a sub n equals, we need the common ratio of 1/4 times a sub n minus 1, the previous term, and then we add on with a sub 1 equal to 3072. The reason why we need to tell everyone what the first term is if they just looked at the formula and said, all right, I'm going to take 1/4 times the previous term. Well, what's the previous term? So they get stuck immediately. So you supply them with the previous term, which is the first term of the sequence. That's where they start. So you give them a starting point so that they can then have a previous term to multiply by 1/4.